Hello, dear viewers. This is Oben Horn of Africa, our weekly program Gada, in which we assess the Gada values and the other precious values of the Gada system. Today, I have a guest from Bulehora University, lecturer and PhD candidate there, Mr. Galchu Jarso. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Galchu.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this program.
Yeah, today we will talk about the indigenous Oromo Gada system. And to begin with, will you tell us a little bit about your personal background?
Yes, well, my name is Galchu Jarso. I am a PhD candidate in global study with a special emphasis on peace and security in Africa. And I am now on the last year to complete my PhD. I'm writing the dissertation now. And I have also 10 years of experience and teaching in the areas of conflict management, political science at Bulehora University.
Will you tell us about the Gada system a little bit, please?
Yes, the Gada system is part of the indigenous knowledge system of the Oromo peoples. It encompasses every aspect of the Oromo community. We cannot, of course, define the Gada system in a single term or in a very limited way because it's a very broad concept. It's a very broad ideas, which includes environmental protections, human relationship, and also the cosmic environment. So it's a very broad concept, but it is a totality of the Oromo worldview, how the Oromo relate themselves to the universe and try to exist also within his immediate or their immediate environment.
Yeah, that's good. The Oromo Gada system has taken centuries since it is started practicing by the Oromo people. What does this shows to the civilization of the Oromo people in these early days?
Yes, thank you very much. This is an interesting question. So before the coming of the white-dominated concept of civilization, which centered on the modern science and the Eurocentric worldview, we Oromo have our own civilization. Civilization can be understood as the way of life of a particular community, of course. So the guiding principles by which the community organize and govern themselves to ensure their continuity. So the many aspects of Oromo civilization have been embedded in the Gada system. So Gada is a holistic concept. It is not confined to a system of governance alone, by the way. It's a very broad idea, as I have said. So it is a pervasive philosophical concept that defines the existence of the community. So the Oromo have their own cosmic understanding and means of defining their environment, including how to dispense justice and restore peace among the members of the community. Professor Bekele Gutama of Addis Ababa University once wrote, "We can think of the Gada system in which the Oromo try to answer the questions of how to live depending on their context, life experiences, and above all, the worries of how to have a harmonious and peaceful life." So it shows that Oromo have their own civilizations to define themselves in their own context. So many historians and Egyptologists, people who study the historical development of Egyptian civilization, believe that Oromo had a strong foundation of civilizations. Let me quote one scholar for you. Bonnie Holcombe is an anthropologist, and she asserts that Gada system organized the Oromo peoples in an all-encompassing democratic republic even before the few European travelers arrived from England to the shores of North America and only later built democracy in America. So she was asserting that Oromo have their own democratic way of governing themselves before Americans invented democracy in their country. So particularly before 16th century, knowledge of Oromo civilization was very much limited. And to the worst, it was very, very fragmented. This is because for generations, the Oromo have mainly transmitted their history and the culture through oral discourses, and accurate documentations of the Oromo civilization have been discouraged or even prohibited by the Ethiopian state. And as a result, the adequate information of the Oromo culture and the way of life has been lacking before 16th century. Although we have limited knowledge of Oromo history before 16th century, it is reasonable to think that these peoples did not invent the Gada system in 16th century, by the way, but they consolidated the Gada system in 16th century to fight different forces that emerged in the Horn of Africa, beginning from 16th century. So there was consolidations of the Gada system in 16th century, but Gada system was invented long before 16th century. So to substantiate this view further for you, I want to add another scholar. Virginia Lulling was also she's an anthropologist from UK, and she wrote her MA thesis, I think so, in 1965 on the Oromo Gada system. She was a long friend of Oromo peoples. So she wrote from the mid 16th century to the mid 19th century, the Oromo were dominant on their own territories. No peoples of other culture was in a position to exercise force over them during those days, according to her conclusion, because they organized themselves under the Gada system, and they defended their lands and the peoples from 16th century to 19th centuries, particularly before the coming of fire armies to the Horn of Africa, where some groups get access to the fire armies and finally defended break their line of defense in Oromia. So Oromo have their own civilizations, and that civilization is embedded and preserve it in the Gada system.
Yeah, that's great. Of course, this Oromo indigenous Gada system has got recognitions 5 or 6 years back and registered on the UNESCO's Book of Intangible Cultural Heritage. Do the Ethiopian preserve it and promote it as it is needed?
Yes, this is a good question, of course, because Gada system is now part of intangible cultural heritages of humanity, which was recognized by UNESCO. So Ethiopia hosted the 11 sessions of UNESCO Intergovernmental Committee for Safeguarding Intangible Cultural Heritage in 2016. And the Gada system was inscribed as intangible cultural heritage during this conference. Since it is inscription at UNESCO, we have seen revival of the Gada system in various zones of Oromia, and mainly in universities in Oromia regional state, where the Gada system has been getting tremendous attentions, particularly from researchers. Revival of researches on indigenous knowledge, particularly in universities in Oromia region. For example, Bulahora University, Jimma University, Haramaya University, and other universities in Oromia have promoted the Gada system in different ways, including through the establishment of institutions. We have institutions, for example, in Bulahora University, Gada and Culture Institution, Cultural Study Institution. And also, we have also academic programs. the BA degree in Gada and Oromo history, master degree in Gada and peace study, PhD in Gada and governance were launched in Bulawayo University very recently. And also in other universities, in Jinma universities, in Haromaya University, in Wallaga universities, we have also programs that focus on Gada system. For example, in Jinma universities, we have a journals that is dedicated to the documentations and the study of the Gada system. The Barule Gada of Jinma University is a very good example. So at national level, the attention given to the Gada system by the Ethiopian Ministry of Culture and Sport is, I think, not enough. For me, it is not enough. The construction of Oromo Culture Center in the heart of the capital city by the Oromia regional government is a good move, but there are not enough material resources that shows the immense cultural resources of the Oromo peoples also in that center. I visited that center several times when I went there for conferences, and the materials are lacking. That, of course, shows the immense civilizations of the Oromo peoples in Ethiopia. The most important progress in Oromia region, particularly, is the establishment of the indigenous Gada court. In the Gada court is now established in various zones and waradas, and that is a very important move. And I believe this move by the Oromia regional state is important in terms of restoring the lost cultural values of the Oromo peoples, particularly in the areas of justice. So when we look at the national level, we don't see a specific policy and strategies to promote the Gada values and the norms and principles for national and regional development. But in Oromia region, we have a promising move, including also the incorporations of Gada as one subject in lower grades. There is a subject called Safu from grade 1, and it is to nurture small kids, small children to understand the Oromo culture. So I think the measures taken by the federal government and the regional government is important, but they are not enough. Policies and strategies should be devised. Various centers should be created, established to promote the Gada system.
You already started about the Gada curriculum incorporated with the elementary school up to high school. There is a principle for kids in Gada system. Do this education which is provided to the children in school have a relation with these principles, and what is its role in shaping those kids to practice the Gada system?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, one important aspect of this subject, the Gada or the Safu, is to teach small children to understand how Oromo define themselves, their environment, their family, the relationship between old and young, and how the Oromo people preserve their forest, their water, and also how they rear also their cattle. So at lower level, students are exposed to the knowledge of their communities. You know, most of the time, whether it is science or physics or mathematics or social sciences, children's in the school focus on Western issues, or knowledge which is related to the West in one way or the other. It's about if it's about plants, they teach about plants based on the science of agriculture, which is food science maybe. But when it's come to Safu, they learn the moral aspect of life, the moral aspect of life, not scientific aspect, but more of the moral aspect of life and the terminologies used by their own peoples, by their families to define, to describe their environment. So the moral aspect of the subject is very important for children to understand how their family members, their ancestors understand, define, and live within their own context. So I think it is important, and it will help a student to understand themselves also.
Yeah, that's good. There is a precious Gada values which inherited from our forefathers. Do you think these values have been practiced by the existing generation, especially the youngest one?
Yeah, I think this question needs tremendous cautions to answer. I think so. It is difficult to say that this generation should practice the Gada system just like their forefathers. It's really very difficult. This is because there have been changes globally that affect the Gada system and the succeeding generation as well. 100 years back, for example, 100 years back, Gada system was strong because there was no competing political structure. There was no competing political structure as we have today. The modern state is a competing political structure today to the Gada system. Gada is also a way of organizing and governing a society. Modern state is also another way of organizing and governing a particular society. So the state system that emerged in Oromia over the last 100 years had its own impact on the practice of the Gada system. It has its own impact. So the modern education system, with its benefit and also disadvantage, has also impacted the practice of the Gada system in these generations. 100 years back, we don't have modern educations. So the modern education system appreciates the Western knowledge and undermines the indigenous knowledge system, particularly in the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s. Western education and knowledge were very much appreciated when we compare with this indigenous knowledge. So traditional knowledge, as the Western people call, it lacks scientific methods and methodology, and therefore is they call it inferior when compared to the modern scientific knowledge, which is a Eurocentric knowledge. So as a result, indigenous knowledge was discouraged for many years. So as this generation has been living under this pervasive global and local entanglements, it is impossible to expect the original practice of Gada system today. It's really difficult because all this impact is coming to these generations. However, one important thing is the young generation today are the most drug affected generations when we compare with the past generations, because there was no drugs, there was no exposure to outside culture many years back. All that affects how this generation practice the Gada system today. However, regardless of these challenges, the Gada system is still fully functional, particularly in the Guji and Borana zone. The system is being restored also in other zones where it has been severely weakened following the emergence of modern state system. It still is now reviving, and we have now the constructions of Bagada in various zones of Oromia. There are ritual areas which are dedicated to the Gada system in various zones in Oromia. And this generation has seen also the incorporation of the Gadaa system in the modern educations, a curriculum, and continuous interest among the scholars, among anthropologists, to study the Gadaa system. So what we have today is, unlike the previous generations, we have different ways of practicing the Gadaa system today, studying the Gadaa values and norms and publishings, teachings on Gadaa system, incorporating Gadaa system into school curriculum, into researches, and producing journal articles on the Gadaa system is one way of practicing the Gadaa system. It cannot be like the previous generations because of the impact I have raised now. But what is lacking is of course, the moral aspect of the Gadaa system, particularly the way the young generation respect the elders, the positions, and the place, the societal values given to the elders by the community is now gradually eroded as a result of all these pervasive global and the local pressures. And as a result, today we have disagreements and conflicts in various areas of Oromia zones. And it shows that as the owners of this most precious indigenous knowledge, we are not fully practicing our Gadaa system.
Great. Even though external factors and impacts are there, do our fathers or elders discharging their responsibility to sustain this indigenous Gadaa system, or in bequeathing to the existing generation, what was and what is their role in advising, consulting, and teaching them?
Yeah, the role of the Gadaa fathers is particularly to teach the young generations to be a role model, to be a role model for the younger generations. As an elder of the community, as a member of Abba Gadaa council, elders should play a role model kinds of role. They should be an exemplar for the younger generations. That is how the values in the Gadaa system transmit from one generation to the other. They look at somebody on the positions of leading the community and they follow that person. Abba Gadaa or the rest of the councillors or Hayu or somebody who play the roles, different roles in the Gadaa council, they should be an exemplar for the younger generation. They should dispense justice. They should judge impartially. They should treat members of their community fairly, so that younger generations accept their decisions and also follow their footsteps. That is how indigenous knowledge, particularly the Gadaa system, is transmitted from one generation to the other. They learn from one another. Somebody who is very, very knowledgeable about their culture, about their values. When that person play specific roles, particularly in dispensing justice, in discharging justice, in treating people fairly, and standing for the equality of the peoples, protecting women, protecting the environment, and also avoiding corruptions, particularly, which is a very bad aspect of the indigenous now. You don't commit corruptions in the Gada system. You judge fairly. Everybody is respected. Everybody is heard. Everybody is invited to be part of the decisions. So by playing this role, by discharging these duties, elders can be a role model for younger generations. So I think that is their responsibilities, to nurture the young generations to grow up in the Gada system.
That's good. Let's talk about the role of women in peace building as well as resolving the conflicts in the Gada system.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a very important aspect of the Gada system, particularly when we come to the role of women. You know, in Gada system, in Sirnagada, women are not encouraged to go to the war. They don't go to the war. That is a role reserved for men. So women plays the role of restoring peace and order. Once the conflict broke out, the role of women is to intervene and restore peace. So you see, the Gada system has divided a role for men and the women, particularly in conflict resolutions. Women as a peace agent when conflict broke out. So women do not go to war in Oromo culture, and their main role is to restore peace. As a peace agent, particularly women are the peace ambassadors in Oromo culture, by the way. They are peace ambassadors because women as a peacemakers is one of the most important contributions of the Oromo Gada system in the field of, I think, conflict resolution, because Kwe Kumsa, she's an Oromo writer, well known on the right of women and on the institutions of women, and she wrote, and I remember, for example, people's respect and revere a woman because what made her to be respected and revered. She wrote this idea. The respect that people give for women is a respect given to women by God Himself, according to her. Interfering with a woman's sacred authority is regarded as violating God's law. You don't interfere with women's authority, particularly the authority given for women. And if you interfere with it, you are interfering with nature, with God's law, particularly. So one of the rights given for women is to intervene when conflict broke out, particularly to restore peace and order. So they play a role of mediations in Oromia, particularly. Once the woman intervened in a conflict with a stick, very thin snake, we call it siko in Guji Oromo. Once she held that stick and then intervened, went to the battlefield or to the parties to restore order, and it's a duty of both parties to respect her. Not respecting her means interfering, violating the law of God, as Kumsaro. So that is how Gada values preserve peace and order. The conflicting party agree on this. They agree on these principles of woman as a mediator, woman as a peace agent, and both parties respect that specific institution of women as a peace agent. So I think that the position of women as a peace agent in Oromia is very important, but we didn't fully benefited from it up to now. Yeah.
That's great. The Oromo Gada system has greater role in peace building. Gada embrace peaceful building values and approaches to maintain lasting peace in the society. Do Ethiopians benefited from this Gada system?
Well, okay. I prefer to say no, not yet here to this question. In the Oromo Gada system, there is mechanism to restore peace and order after conflict took place. Once the war broke out, peoples will not keep on fighting each other. They will not keep on fighting each other from year to year, from months to months. There is a specific mechanism that is used by both parties to restore peace and order in the Gada system. For example, both parties respect, as I have said before, both parties respect women's role as a peace builder. Woman plays that role of peace building. However, in this modern state structure, we have women as a soldiers, women as a members of police. But in Oromo Gada system, we have women as a peace agent whenever the war broke out, particularly between the Oromos, So this means that in Oromia, we have predetermined set of values to restore peace and order, like the role of women. But today, we have war which is going on from year to year, from month to month. We have elders, we have women, Hadasike, we have elders, Abotigada, who have immense knowledge on how to restore peace and order and on how to negotiate whenever there is conflict, wherever there is conflict. However, even though we have all these resources and immense knowledge, the war is still going on in some part of Oromia, in some part of Ethiopia. And in some cases, even, we don't mention the existence of these values in some cases. And that is not good. If we fail to resolve conflict by state-mandated institutions, we have other alternatives. That alternatives is alternatives in our culture, in the Gada system. Particular, we have that alternative, and this alternative is even the best alternative when we compare with alternatives of the state. We have the best alternatives in the Gada system. They can bring conflicting parties together, negotiate based on Gada values and principles, and restore order. But because of different political and economic interests, we don't see very much emphasis given to our indigenous knowledge in conflict resolution, peace building. So what I want to conclude is we are not yet benefiting from Gada system in restoring peace and order in Ethiopia. we are not yet benefiting. We are aware of its existence, and we know also important values in the Gada system. So that is what I conclude.
Yeah, let's come to the national dialogue. The Oromo Gada system has many values, peace and conflict resolution mechanisms. Do you think it has a contribution for the current national dialogue process?
Yes, yeah, I strongly believe it has a contribution to uh, ongoing national dialogues of Ethiopia. I believe that there are lessons to be taken from the Gada system that will contribute to the success of the ongoing national dialogues in Ethiopia. So the Gada system promotes respect, stability, and also peaceful coexistence, respect for fellow human regardless of race and ethnicity. These are important values in the Gada system. These are also important values in values and principles in dialogue process. Respecting differences regardless of language, regardless of ethnicity, ethnic background, regardless of religion. So for the success of national dialogues, incorporations of these Gada values, the values in the Gada system, which also include transparency in decision making, where everybody, for example, in Gada system, everybody has a natural right to participate in decision making. For example, if it is a Boko assembly or Gumigayo assembly, it is the right of everybody who can travel to that areas to listen and to participate in the decision making process. So it is very, very transparent. Gada decision making process is very, very transparent. No discrimination based on sex, based on economic or ethnic affiliations. So it is the issues that concern the whole community. So everybody is encouraged to participate. So these values are very important for the success of national dialogues. When we look at the Gada system, the way they make decisions, the way they discuss on events or disagreements among the communities, there are a lot of contribution for Ethiopian national dialogues. For example, in the Oromo culture, dialogues or negotiation is open for everybody because it's under text under the tree, and everybody is encouraged to participate. So there is also a proverb in Afan Oromo, for example, Afan Oromo, "Wonni hinjirre hinjirt," "Wonni hinjirre hinjirt," which literally means nothing is new in the Gada system. Nothing is new in here because it means for every problem there is a solution. One injert means for every problem we have a solutions. So whenever there is problems of not knowing how to go forward, particularly in a country's politics, the Oromo have the solution for this. They will tell you what to do. They will tell you how to go forward. They will find ways in their culture on how you will proceed, how you will succeed in life, in administrations, in economy. So it has a lot of contributions, I believe. Yeah.
That's great. Of course, the values of the Gada system should be preserved to be benefit from it. And there is Gada values and principles in order to maintain peace and the conflict resolution. Therefore, in promoting and restoring these values, what is expected from our scholars to promote these values of the Oromo Gada system?
It is clear that there are important values in the Oromo Gada system. But these values have been continually eroded as the Oromo peoples continue to integrate into global political and economic structure. It has been continually eroded. Maybe from 16th century or 17th century onward, there is a gradual encroachment of a global political and economic influences on the Oromo land. So the Gada concept of peace, which centers on interdependency, on harmony among humans and natures, and the respect for elders, women's, respect for women's, respect for knowledgeable elders, have been eroded from time to time. There are factors that contribute to the erosion of these values, and globalizations is the most important factors that leads to the weakening of the Gada system, particularly in these generations. So I think the most important way of restoring our value is by being conscious of our identity, in this fast changing global environment. Developing and cultivating our self-consciousness is very important to keep our values to functions, to work even today. We should continue to work on creating institutions that support and strengthen the Gada system, like indigenous court, establishing academic programs and institute that study the Oromo culture, the Oromo history, the role of women in Gada system, the Gada's way of protecting the natural environment and the land and the forests, protecting our environment from destruction is one way of restoring the Gada values, because this Gada system works in conjunction with the environment, with the land, by the way. So protections of natural environment is one way of restoring the Gada system. What is expected from elders? I think the most important things that we expect from elders is, I have mentioned earlier, is to be a role model for the children and the young members of the community, particularly in the administrations of the community. They should play an exemplar role. Elders should fight corruption, elders should fight injustice, and remain impartial in their dealing and conflict settlement in society. Elders should be a role model for the younger generation by being impartial in their daily life. So they should distance themselves from social evils like drugs, like maladministrations, like corruptions, like initiating conflicts. They should distance themselves from this. Elders should play this role. They should teach important values in Gada system to younger generations, including the school children. So from scholars, I think Oromo scholars should work with other indigenous knowledge scholars from other countries, from other continents, to strengthen indigenous knowledge, particularly in terms of developing indigenous epistemology and methodology. When I say epistemology and methodology, today we have Eurocentric Western kinds of epistemology and methodology when we do researches, when even we think in academics. So To practice indigenous knowledge and also to challenge the modern knowledge system, there should be indigenous epistemology and also indigenous methodology. Through publications, media briefings, conference, and so on, Oromo scholars should promote important values that exist in the Oromo Gada system. This can be achieved if we try to develop our own way of looking at knowledge, our epistemological lens of understanding knowledge productions in our society, and also practicing the Gada system. Like now we have indigenous courts. That is one way of practicing our values. So trying to practice our values in our day-to-day activities, in our day-to-day life, beside producing books, journal articles, and academic programs and institutions that promote the Gada system, we can nurture and restore the Gada values in these generations as well.
Mr. Galchu Jarso, thank you for your expertise, insights, and I appreciate for your time.
Thank you a lot. Thank you.
Dear world, that brings us to the end of our session for today. Till next edition, have a wonderful time.